Hey man, how you doing?
Hey,
Have you
good. How
have
are
you
you
heard
today?
about all these UFOs in the sky above New Jersey?
I have.
Well,
I
what's the deal with that?
absolutely have.
Um,
I want to know what they are,
well,
right?
let's get into it.
Let's do it.
All right, so we have. I live in the Northeast. I believe you do. Maybe you don't. You're the
Yeah,
comrade. You do move around a
yeah.
lot, you know.
It's a
But
secret location, right?
I can tell
Undisclosed
you
location.
for sure that I personally have seen massive drones in the sky, and I mean they were huge. And
Wild.
I know people who have actually saw a jet fighter fly past their house in broad daylight.
Wow.
So
You've actually seen this.
I
That's
saw
interesting.
a giant, many drones, but the one was in my backyard, and it was a huge drone, and it was just
Really?
chilling right there. But
Interesting.
I get it. I live like in a hotbed around there's a lot going on around here. This is in the middle of Nebraska, you know. How about
Right,
you? Have you
right.
seen anything? Heard anything? Specifically, have
So
you seen anything?
I personally have specifically have not seen anything, at least not over Philadelphia. Now that could be for two reasons. One, I literally haven't seen anything, or two, I have not been paying attention. So if there was something above my head looking at me, I didn't know it.
Okay.
So or like three, and I know extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. So this is just me speculating idly. It could have been a Men in Black situation where they, I might have seen something and then they
Erased it.
erase the memory with the
Well,
the device.
I could tell you that I absolutely saw many drones in the sky, and I saw
That's wild.
a giant drone. It looked kind of black and it had the lights, but it was big, and it was just staying there. So let
Right.
me just get into it and what I think is really happening.
Yes.
You know, I know a lot of
Yes.
this is a psyop and all that, but let's dig deep and try to
Yeah,
at
please,
least
I'm
for me,
curious.
I don't know, I'm more interested in this topic. I know you are too, but I'm like really into this.
Oh
So
yeah.
let's get
I'm
into
curious
it.
to hear what you think because this is gonna be wild. Yeah.
Oh yeah, and before we get started, why not just say it? Hey, if you guys watch this video, don't forget to like and subscribe. There's going to be more fun stuff. And
Down there.
anyway, with all that being taken care of, so I think there's a pretty big psyop going on. Psyop, you're familiar with the
Interesting.
term, right?
Oh yes, yes. The
So I think
psychological operations, right. Yes.
the information has been for the past 60, 70, 80 years has been muddled, has been confused on purpose. And I think that America absolutely has crafts of extraterrestrials, and they have been back engineering this with like Bob Lazar and all that stuff they've talked about. And this has been going on for almost 70 years. This is shortly after World War II. China obviously has this technology as well. They've been going to the moon. They've been going to the dark side of the moon. Why would they be doing all this? Because the high level governments absolutely 100% know that, a lot of the religions out there are all kind of alluding to a God above, but I think that they're here with us. They've been here long before us. This is the higher power, right? The people with this technology are certainly integrated into our governments, into the FBI. I just think our government knows so much. And let me just put it this way. I think we've been in a cold World War III scenario ever since COVID. I think COVID was engineered. I think it was placed. I think it was disruptive on purpose. And I think 2025 is kind of when we really humanity gets a sense that we are not alone and that we do have back engineered crafts. And I think that they're operating out there as well too. But I think we're starting to demonstrate that we have this technology. You can just see it in the videos. What do you think?
Interesting. So where do I begin? So I'll start here. Surely, and again, just for everyone listening and watching, I'm only speculating idly here. I don't have any information beyond the next person.
It's
right?
just fun at
What we
this
all
point.
know.
I mean, it's such a vast topic, But
I'm gonna
just
throw out a bunch of
allow
ideas,
yourself
right?
to do it.
Yeah, I'm gonna throw out a bunch of ideas, most of which will probably be pretty mainstream, but some would be a little out there. So I think, and I really do, it would not surprise me, I should say, that the U.S. government, for example, or even the government of China, for its part, has technology that we don't know they have. Right? They're probably testing things. To your point about a third world war type of scenario, I agree. I think we're essentially in a situation like that. It doesn't really look like, or a Cold War II, if you will. Sure, it doesn't look like the first Cold War or the Second World War, with the lines and the troop movements and all that. At least not exactly. A lot of technologies involved, a lot of brinksmanship of sorts, geopolitical games. Obviously, we see some flare-ups around the world, Syria, Ukraine,
Sure.
South China Sea. So potentially, it's just wild. So these drones, what's the deal? Now, you described it as a very large drone that you
The
actually
one that I
saw,
saw was
which is
very large.
really interesting because when I first heard the story, I imagined these little drones, like the kind that you or I might buy at a Toys R Us.
I
and
have
fly
one.
around,
They're toys.
right?
They're little tiny
Yeah.
drones. They're
And I didn't, because I hadn't really watched it on news, only read about them. And I think, oh, okay, yeah, maybe people are testing things, and maybe someone's doing a prank, right?
sure.
But now that you're describing this giant drone-like structure, it does make me wonder. I have two questions.
What?
Who's doing that? Whose drone is that? Is it
Right.
the U.S. government, or worse, is it a foreign actor?
I would
hostile
think.
country.
What's your second question?
And the other thing is, what would they be doing it for? I wonder what you think of that, right? What's the deal with that? Are they just showing off? Are they, whoever it is, are they looking at us, not personally, but in general? Like, are they say, hey, what's the deal?
Let me
with
put on
New
my
Jersey?
my tinfoil hat if you.
Yeah.
So
Hit me with
what's
it. Yeah.
really going on?
Yeah.
We live on a rock in the middle of outer space, and we are these bipedal humanoids that walk on 2 feet, and allegedly we are the most conscious thing on it, right? I think there is a war, not so much a war. It's kind of everything and nothing, right? Like, what does all the religion always say? Oh, Jesus is going to return. The gods are going to return. That wasn't the prophet.
Right. They're gonna
If you
come
start
back.
to look at the Native Americans, especially in Australia, the cave paintings, you see these people that came out of the earth. I believe that there are bases inside of our planet that these Antarctica for sure. We can't even go there. They have this treaty that no country is allowed to go anywhere near Antarctica. There is so much happening inside this world with these black operations, and I think the big thing that really is setting it off is the fact that Donald Trump is going to get involved. And he wants to. Once you put the JFK files out there, then we know for certain that they killed the U.S. president. And there is so much CIA, FBI, and DARPA. There's just so many of these unlimitedly funded things that operate. That KGB. I mean, there's so much. I think us regular tax-paying people are just ants, and I think they're playing a really, really high-level game. And I think that the crafts, I think there's many different type of species, and I think there's a more supreme one that is the light beings. They always talk about the light beings. I think the light beings and these crabs can be separate. I think there is some sort of a God thing that's around. It's not just in our quadrant. I think it's a universal kind of God frequency thing. I think that's much higher. But I think that we are evolving into the age of Aquarius, and I think the world will fundamentally change drastically in the next 25 years, 10 years. People used to think the world was flat. I mean, they used to Galileo, all these people, they had all these ideas, and people would be like, it's demonic, It's almost like...
Oh, yeah. The institutions protecting their own.
And that's the psyop.
Yeah.
Always make this outside information to be something evil, when perhaps it is just our natural evolution. But of course, humans are going to be selling oil, selling guns, selling war. I think humans
as we do, right?
are almost are just evil inherently. I think we're kind of horrible to everything, So to summarize it, I think we're on the precipice of something that is drastically different than we used to see the world. you know.
It's so interesting to me because we humans, we certainly have as far as we know, a very high degree of consciousness, but obviously we're somewhat, I would say, as far as we know, right? And because there's a lot we don't understand in the cosmos, but somewhat limited by biology in the sense that we have brains, and when the brain shuts down and when the heart stops and all that, what happens afterwards, right?
Right.
It's I mean, existential question. If that plants any existential dread in anyone, I don't know the answer. I'm sorry. I just made it worse.
Sure.
The point of this, though, is we're somewhat limited, and all the things we do. I mean, we are also animals, and we are part of nature itself, and we are subject to the laws of physics and nature. So I look at it and say, well, yeah, despite hopefully we are evolving. I actually hope we are evolving for the better. And the age of Aquarius, as the song sings, right?
Sure.
Is something it would be wonderful. I think it'll take a little time, but perhaps, to use a bit like the analogy of Star Trek, perhaps if a species or an extraterrestrial species came down and visited us, say the Vulcans, just have fun with it, and we realize, hey, wait, we're not alone in the universe. There are others out there who have this amazing technology. Hopefully we pull together, and hopefully we won't need a third world war as portrayed in Star Trek's canon to get there. Hopefully we'll be visited, and after the initial fears, where they say we come in peace.
Well, I don't think
okay,
I think we're always visited. I think that it has been going
Yeah,
on.
right. Well, that's another interesting
There's a whole
thing,
other
right?
thing I could get into, but it's basically the resetting of the world that's happened numerous times. How the world is basically, they say we're in like the 5th cycle of civilization, and that perhaps this is an experiment, and then you just wipe it clean, and then you just try again. So sometimes I feel like humanity. Like some days I wake up and I'm like, I'm logical and I'm intelligent. I think we humans are severely limited, and I think
100%
psychedelics
agree.
and near-death experiences and religious moments, I think we're getting a little piece of this large thing that so it's almost like showing an ant, like the Epcot Center in Philadelphia, Florida.
Right.
And you're just like, they're like, all I see is the ground. Like, what does an ant see? They don't know how to quantify size,
Yeah. Yeah, you're absolutely right. That's a great analogy. Like an ant looking at Epcot Center in Disney World or something.
They
or
would
even
see
the
the
Empire
ball,
State Building.
the golf ball, but what's
what am I looking
inside
at
of the
here?
golf ball?
Yeah.
And then the ant, we'd say, we just have a ride in there. What do you mean? You just go in there for fun? You're like, yeah, it's just a ride. And you're like, no, but it's this giant, big ball,
And I wonder too, like in a way, if there is an extraterrestrial species that has reached us, they have warp speed, they have all the technology they have to go as far as we can't, light years of travel, and visit Earth, and they see us. Are we to them what ants are to us? Like I always, it's
I think,
not to invoke more dread
I
here, but
think
like
our intelligence is dwarfed compared to them, because the things I've seen and heard about them, the tall whites and like all these, the tall whites are these Nordics. They're supposed to be inside the planet and all. They seem to be able to talk to us without speaking, so they seem to really understand. Like there's even ways where they can they freeze you up. Like they totally understand our chemistry and our synchronicity, and I think that we are just fodder to them, man. I do think that there are humans. I think they do take them, and they're okay. How do I say this? So North Korea, right? There's people who live in North Korea that have never had the internet. They don't know what the world is outside of North Korea.
Right.
And I think
that's sadly true.
That's how we are here globally. And I think there are other humanoids who exist in other spaces and places with these higher, what do you want to call them? Higher deities. I think that they might take them young and just train them, and then that's their world. They're outside of North Korea. We're like kind of North Korea in comparison. If you know the metaphor.
I got
I'm
it.
saying.
Yeah. I think I get it. It's interesting because there'll be some who are like kind of outliers, right? They're let's say they have a heightened sense of heightened sense of consciousness, a heightened intuition, something like that most of us don't have, for whatever reason. We don't have it, right?
Yeah.
And so those people with that heightened intuition or that heightened consciousness, those outliers, maybe they're the ones who sense, hey, there's something more than I'm seeing in the physical world. There's something I'm feeling, but it's not just something in my body either.
Yeah.
From hormones or chemistry. And then perhaps perhaps they're more in touch with things
Well,
like
if
this. And
also
people
good-
who've done psychedelics,
Right.
claim supposedly they've gotten there too. At least tasted
that's a great point. And
Or
if you
meditation.
notice in modern day society, if you speak your thoughts out loud, people will call you crazy. If you're
Crazy.
creative and you're not an artist or a athlete or something, then you're just like, people are like, "Ooh, wow, he'll never get it together."
Yeah.
And it almost
Yeah.
seemed, and the way
Yeah.
they did class 1, you can't, any of the psychedelics are all class 1 drugs, so they're all super
that's true
illegal.
too, yeah.
And then the rise of pharmaceutical, it almost seems like it was engineered specifically by America, because they love their pharmaceutical, to actually suppress us from awakening. And I think it's going to be inevitable in the next 50 years for sure. I don't even think it's going to be this with automation and all these other different things.
Oh, it's going to be amazing what we.
People
yeah.
are scared of it, and I get it. Like, we only get a limited time on this planet, and we quantify it by our experience. But 500 years ago, they this phone, this microphone, this everything is AI, and we exist in a certain pocket of AI, and it's completely normal. But even 100 years ago, they'd be like, "What are you doing? You're alone in your basement talking on a microphone to a person somewhere else?" They would think it was the devil. So my point
They
is,
would, or like pure magic, right? It's like,
Right.
What matter of madness is this, right? You're
The-
so right, man.
the more I learn that I really I work on the art of surrender. I really struggle with it, but I find that the knowledge is in surrender and in the moment. And
That's
I
very
guess I'm trying to put it all together, but I honestly don't know. But it's really fun to try to wonder about what the hell's going on.
I love speculating about this stuff. I do, because it's just fascinating, and I like, my imagination runs wild. I'm a big science fiction fan,
Yep.
and I just love like the idea that I just watched an episode of the old Star Trek Next Generation series.
Love that. It's my favorite
And,
one.
they had but one of
Yeah,
yes,
my
mine
favorite
too.
one.
I'm gonna say that's probably my favorite one as well.
For sure.
To be honest, and so I'm watching it, and sure, they're telling the computer on the starship to do things, and it executes commands. And then I see Commander, in that episode it was Lieutenant Commander Data, and I'm thinking, there was in the 1990s, this was okay, that's really cool science fiction, right? Talking computers and touch screens and a walking humanoid.
And we didn't have
Android.
touch screens yet, right?
We didn't even have touch screens. Now
Well,
we have touch screens.
Yeah.
We have computers who we can talk to, and we're not far off from something like Commander Data. So it's just amazing. Like, what was once science fiction is slowly becoming science fact, and I love that. I love
Well, it's like
that.
it's very true. And the one documentary I watched, it was they've had this technology shortly. I mean, it's been around forever. Like after World War II, they recovered the crafts, and they've been trickling out the
Yeah.
technology to humanity while they actually had very advanced technology. So it's like if you gave a 5-year-old kid somewhere a Nintendo, like an NES, the old one, and you never showed them another video game, they'd be like, "Man, these graphics are outstanding. This Mario 2 is
Yep.
incredible." And
Didn't
then
we
like,
think that in our day, right?
surely, and like
Dating myself.
you could easily just give them a PS5. Like it's all what you're used to and what you're presenting,
true.
and then what you use in your everyday life and your environment, right? So I think that
so right,
there's some
yeah.
massive change coming, and I think it's mostly for the positive. I think it's mainly about people's perception of consciousness, but I would just like to see people in general be a lot kinder and nicer to each other. And if we had unlimited energy, we could have clean water, we could have beautiful, it could almost be like the Garden of Eden. Maybe that's what they're talking about, when there was not a big need for all of these resources and fossil fuels, when you could actually figure out infrastructure in a much cleaner and more efficient way,
It's so true. One of my tricks with this, and granted, I am not perfect at this by any stretch of the imagination, nor am I even good at it, I'd argue, but I do try to consider that one, as you said earlier, being in the moment, each and every moment, being mindful of what's really happening in front of you, paying very close attention, really put you in a state of mind, I think, that's somewhat neutral and relatively even. And then also being compassionate to others, and knowing that if they're having an experience, right, we've gotten angry, right, we've gotten upset,
of course, sure.
the world outcomes aren't what we want, and right,
Yeah,
but
sure.
I just think,
an emotional reaction.
an emotional reaction.
Yes.
Give into it. But if we learn that, hey, that emotion will pass, and it sounds like woo woo maybe, but it really does work. It's not easy to do, but it does work. It requires practice.
Sure.
But I find that over time, with that compassion, knowing that other people are going through the same thing, we can become at least kinder to one another. At very least, we can say, you know what, that person said something that didn't hit right for me.
Sure.
But maybe that person's going through something. It's their pain talking. It's not really like them. It's some emotion they're having, and they don't realize how much that stings. And maybe if I point it out to the person and they're willing to listen, cool. Or I just let it go if it's not that serious and think, hey, that's how people are, right?
Maybe we're just being guided towards being negative and violent and barbaric.
My goodness.
But I think we're
that's in our nature too, I'm afraid.
Quite certainly, yeah, but most
Yeah.
definitely. But
As we
that
see.
was fun. It's really hard to quantify it all. It's hard not to
It
get
is,
off
right.
into like your own like. They say woo woo, but I mean I like that stuff. What's the alternative? To just be super serious and take everything for how it is? No,
Well, right,
I'd rather
yeah.
wonder. I'd rather speculate. I'd rather work a theory up. And if it's my personal one and I'm still being kind and good to everyone else, then there's nothing wrong with it.
Hey,
I encourage people to be more curious and wonder, and also be kind. I think it could help a lot. Be kind to not just humans, just everything. Just be mindful.
Everything, anything,
And-
anything that's conscious that at least we know is conscious, and hedge your bets too.
Yeah.
Be nice to that rock
Don't-
you passed too.
Right. Don't step
You
on.
never
Don't step
know, right?
on.
Just in case.
Don't step on bees.
Yeah.
If you can, if there's a
Yeah,
bug
no
in the
reason
house,
to do
put
that.
it outside. Don't
Yeah,
chop
yeah.
a tree down if you don't have to. Just
Yeah.
leave it alone. I really hope when this Trump administration gets in there that we're able to crack some of these underground, unlimited funded skunk
Yeah,
works, all
right.
this nonsense. The people are had enough. The American people have voted, and we
really
no
just
longer
wanna
want to
know,
be
like-
lied to. We
Yeah.
want something else. But we got to wrap this up. I have to edit this and add captions to it, and it's already 25 minutes. So,
Giddy up.
all right, with that, we're out.
Peace.